So it's a challenge to the act to amend the retirement age of the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution, and the Auditor General. Does that have a gender component to it? The lawyer representing DPP Paula Llewelyn raised a gender point on the final day of the hearing in the Court of Appeal. What did he say? Stay tuned for that. So after 5 days of hearing, the Court of Appeal has wrapped up the hearing into the DPP Retirement Age Case. And on the final day of the hearing, Douglas Liz, King's Counsel, who is representing DPP Paula Llewelyn, raised this gender point. And I found it surprising because I didn't see this coming. I haven't heard gender raised as an issue at all in this case, either when it was before the Supreme Court or now before the Court of Appeal. I don't know if it's somewhere in the written submissions, but it kind of felt like it came out of left field. And I had a feeling the judges were a little surprised, as were the lawyers representing the respondents in this case, the opposition parliamentarians, Philip Paulwell and Peter Bunting. But exactly what did Mr. Liz say? Well, he referred to what the opposition parliamentarians had asked for in the initial court documents that they had filed in the Supreme Court. And let me just show you exactly what it is he was referring to. This was paragraph 174 of the Supreme Court ruling that laid out what they were asking for. So they were asking for the entire section 2 that raised the retirement age for the DPP and the Auditor General to be struck out. If the court didn't do that, they were then asking the court to what is called read down section 2.1, meaning restrict its application, and to construe it, to interpret it as not applying to the incumbent DPP, that's Ms. Llewelyn. So in other words, they were saying, okay, if you leave in the part that refers to the DPP retirement age, say that it doesn't apply to this DPP, to Ms. Llewelyn. Also, they were asking the court to strike out the other section, that's section 2.2, that says, or maybe I should say subsection, that says the incumbent DPP, again, Ms. Llewelyn, can elect to retire at any time after the age of 60. So if the court makes such a ruling, this court, the Court of Appeal, it would mean Ms. Llewelyn is no longer DPP. Now, according to Mr. Liz, though, if the court decided to go that route, to read down, to restrict the act, to exclude Ms. Llewelyn, he said the judges, the court would be on a collision course with the Constitution. What did he mean again? He was talking about the section of the Constitution that provides for that provides protection against discrimination in a certain number of circumstances, including discrimination against on the basis of maleness or femaleness. Let me just bring up the charter so you can see what that says. So it protects against discrimination on the grounds of being male or female. So according to Mr. Liz now, if they did that, if they decided to say the act doesn't apply to Ms. Llewelyn, if they decided to say the act excludes Ms. Llewelyn, it would be excluding her as a female, therefore being problematic when viewed against the anti-discriminatory provision in the Constitution. Well, the judge said, boy, Mr. Liz, it feels like you're taking us into some deep bushes on this one. And King's Counsel Michael Hilton, who is representing Philip Paulwell and Peter Bunting, said he had a lot of things in his very fertile mind. He said this was not one of them. He said gender had absolutely nothing to do with this case. So the rest of the session really was Mr. Hilton responding to some of the cases that the other lawyers had cited. And as I had said in a previous video, this part of the hearings can get a little dull and a little hard to follow and understand if you don't have the 50 million bundles that the judges have before them. So I'm not going to take you through that. All right. Now, when everything was finished, when all the submissions were finished, the judge said that they need to now kick back and really consider the submissions. She said she knows that this is a very sensitive case, that it has to be dealt with some urgency, but at the same time, that the judges do have to do their due diligence. So she said that the lawyers can expect a ruling as soon as possible in the new court term. This current court term ends on July 31. The new term starts September 23. So it would be nice if the first Friday in the new term that the ruling is handed down. Fridays are when the Court of Appeal tends to hand down rulings, but we'll see. She did, she gave herself a little bit of wiggle room, gave the court a little bit of wiggle room there by saying as soon as possible. Now, since this matter is all about Paula Llewelyn, I just wanted to just give you a little bit more background on her if you don't know. So, of course, I suspect most people know that Paula Llewelyn was the first woman appointed DPP in Jamaica. Let me tell you a little bit more about her backstory, though. And this is pulled from the office of the DPP's website, so you can go and check it out for yourself. She went to St. Hugh's High School, and then she went on to study law. She completed her law studies in 1984. And that same year, she started as a clerk of courts in the St. James Resident Magistrate Court. From then, she went on to the Office of the Public Prosecutions, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, rather. 7 years after going to the office of DPP, she then became a Deputy Director of Public Prosecution. So you can see from that she's what I call a career prosecutor. She spent her entire legal career as a prosecutor. In 1999, she became the first woman to act as DPP, and then in 2003, she became the first woman to be appointed as Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, and she became DPP, the top job, in 2008, succeeding former DPP Kent Pantry. The same year, she was appointed Queen's Counsel, and she also received a national award, and that was an Order of Distinction Commander class. Now, as DPP, Ms. Llewelyn, among other things, she oversaw the development of a number of protocols for the office, a prosecution protocol and a disclosure protocol. The disclosure protocol essentially provides guidelines for when it is that the office shares material with the defense. And if you look at the cover of the disclosure protocol, you will see a quote about fair trial saying the right of a criminal defendant to a fair trial is absolute. The right to a fair trial is one to be enjoyed by the guilty as well as the innocent, for a defendant is presumed to be innocent unless proved to be otherwise in a fairly conducted trial. And then if you look at the cover of the prosecution protocol, this is a protocol that guides when is it the office decides to prosecute a case. You see another quote, and this one reads, "The role of the prosecutor excludes any notion of winning or losing. His function is a matter of public duty, than which in civil life there can be none charged with greater personal responsibility. It is to be efficiently performed with an ingrained sense of the dignity, the seriousness, and the justness of judicial proceedings." And both of these quotations are in line with something you hear from Ms. Llewelyn a lot. She talks about prosecutors being what is called ministers of justice. And this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with, for instance, Delroy Chuck, who is currently the Minister of Justice. What it has to do with is how the role of the prosecutor is seen in the justice system. Their overarching aim is supposed to be to ensure a fair trial, even if and fairness and justice, even if that means deciding not to prosecute in certain matters. Their role is not to be that of going, trying to win at all costs. Now, she's also obviously led the prosecution on a whole bunch of high-profile cases, and maybe I'll do a separate video on that. I don't have time to go through those today. But you can see that she has racked up a lot of firsts. Paula Vanessa, as she likes to tell us she's named, has shattered ceilings. She's made history in a number of ways. And one thing is for sure, when this ruling is handed down by the Court of Appeal, one way or the other, she's going to make history again, either as the first DPP to have a court confirm her in the position, or the first DPP to have a court remove her from that position. One way or the other, I'll be here with you to take you through it. Thank you so much for joining me courtside. I'm Dionne Jackson Miller. See you next time.